Well, you're raising the dead or shooting for the stars. Well, you can't go wrong with a Pottymouth guitar.
All right, welcome to Pottymouth Guitars. You're looking at Earl Pottymouth Arbuckle. And yes, we are finally at the moment of truth. I've been working towards this all along, and I've been nervous about this stage. We're going to be putting a clear coat on the top of this thing, and I've had some mishaps with clear coats. I've had some success with clear coats. I've done a couple of epoxy clear coats, and that's what we're going to be doing today, because that is the clear coat that's going to stick to this wax grain filler, and we've prepped it with the vinyl sealer from Stu Mac. So what we're getting ready to do is make some epoxy. And what I've got here is Envirotex Light epoxy, and I've already taken this to-go cup and I marked on it equal measures. So we're going to measure a very generous amount of this clear coat. We're going to use more than we need, just because I don't want to mess it up. I'm really anxious about making sure I get this one right. So we're gonna get this one right. So the first thing we're gonna do, so yeah, we got this glass, we've got the hardener and the resin. And bam. Now the epoxy, the folks who manufacture this stuff were very adamant about making sure that the proportions used are equal. So that's why I basically took a yogurt container, filled it to the brim with water, marked it, filled it to the brim with water again, poured it in here, and marked it again. So there's two lines on the side of this thing. Buddy's Burgers, thank you, Buddies, for providing me with a vessel to start this clear coat with. Now we're going to mix this for 3 whole minutes, and then we're going to transfer it into another container and mix it for another 3 whole minutes. Now, again, one of the things about epoxy is it has to be mixed equally and perfectly mixed. If it's not thoroughly mixed, you can get uneven drying. So basically, if you don't mix the hardener in the right proportions with the resin, you end up with part of it hardening, the stuff with the hardener in it, and the stuff that didn't quite get enough hardener mixed in will be tacky forever and ever, if not forever and ever. If you really mess it up, it'll just basically, I think it'd probably eventually dry, but it would take so long. This, whatever you ended up with would be full of debris and junk. So, well, that's doing that. I'm going to go get the other container. I've got these ice cream containers. Basically, epoxy does not adhere to plastics, especially the food grade plastics. You can be pretty sure that epoxy will not adhere to it. So basically looks or makes good, especially if you want to reuse stuff. And we're about trying to recycle and reuse and repurpose items here, because we've had a good teacher in Indigo Ryal, our good friend. Now, I'm going to pour this in here. Okay, so you can see that I've taped the guitar off. I put tape to isolate the control cavities and the pickup cavities, because of course we don't want to fill those spaces full of epoxy, because that's a waste of epoxy for one thing, and also those spaces are reserved for other stuff, electronics and pickups and whatnot. So you don't want to end up inadvertently putting a half-inch worth of epoxy down at the bottom of one of these pickup cavities and not be able to not be able to fit the pickup in there after that. That would be a tragedy. So, see a whole lot of bubbles in this epoxy. That's just the way it's going to have to be, because that's what happens when you mix things together. But the bubbles are the scourge. They are the bugaboo of this whole process. And the problems I've had in the past all are related to bubbles. So we're going to do what we can to make sure that we get rid of the bubbles, and there's methods to do that we've learned in watching epoxy resin using videos. Another thing, just to FYI, we've got this leveled. So And make sure that the surface that you're going to be putting an epoxy coat on is level. The reason for that is because epoxy is a self-leveling substance. And if I pour it on here and the guitar is slanted that way, then this side of the epoxy is going to be thick and this is going to be thin. And some of this may just eventually completely just run off. And yeah, you'd have a big pool of epoxy down at the one end of the thing. So we don't want that happening. I've also, as you can see, there's what is a lid, and this is a lid of a plastic, tub, container store style tub, that we're using to catch any runoff on the epoxy. And since it's plastic, much like the glass and the gelato container that we're using for the mixing, the epoxy should not adhere to that. So that's going to be good for us. And we'll let that settle for just a second. Let the bubbles rise a bit. Come on, bubbles. And you'll also, maybe you can see from the side that I've got the body of the guitar elevated off of the lid, off of the plastic catch-all. And what I've got there they're actually silicone baby blocks, just like this. These guys right here. And I had a heck of a time finding something silicone that also had enough structural integrity to hold something up, especially a 8-pound, 10-pound guitar body. And with 4 of these sitting underneath the guitar body, they won't collapse under the weight of the guitar body. And the silicone also will not, the epoxy won't stick to that. So that's a big advantage. All right, well, we're getting ready to do the big pour, and this is boy, I'm anxious. I really am anxious. I've been working on this guitar for a good long time, and I don't want to mess it up. Especially now that it's not going to be my guitar anymore. It's going to be the lovely Stacy Shea Williams guitar. So I want to make sure that it turns out beautifully for her. The little flaws that wouldn't have bothered me may not bother her, but knowing that her guitar has those flaws on it would bother me. So this is the moment of truth. We're going to take this epoxy and just pour it over the surface. And we're going to let it run over the sides. We're going to just let it run over the sides as much as it wants. Because that's how we're going to get that the sides clear coated. But I've taped the bottom so that the epoxy doesn't roll off the sides and then start dripping off the surface of the guitar and just form a bunch of beads on the bottom. So I've got a bunch of tape, a big elaborate scaffold of tape here to catch the excess epoxy and let it flow away from the body so that those beads don't accumulate. So let's just do this. Quit talking about it. All right. We're covering the entire surface of this thing with this epoxy glue. And it just started pouring over the sides, which is just fine. Okay. All right, and this is a palette knife that would normally be used for an artist's palette. These bubbles are just popping there on their own. It's very nice. We're going to help them along a little bit. So I'm just dragging portions of this epoxy all over the edge so that it slides over the edge, and then I'm going to spread it with this palette knife. To cover the sides. Since there's already some epoxy flowing over the sides, I'm just kind of joining up the surfaces together. It's working out really nicely. This is actually working a lot better than I anticipated, which is the reason why it's taken me a full week just to work up the gumption to do this video. Because, of course, in my fantasies, at this point, I'd already be panicking and running around and trying to figure out what went wrong. But boy, oh boy, it's actually cooperating beautifully. And covering the sides even nice and evenly. All right, I'm going to get in front of the camera actually because I'm hesitant to swivel this because of the leveling. So we're going to just work a little of that over the edge. And once it has some of this on it, it's actually kind of even self-leveling sideways in a way, which is pretty awesome. As long as we get some of this epoxy everywhere. It stays pliable and workable for about a half an hour. So I've got some time to mess around with it like this. But at a certain point you have to kind of leave it alone, otherwise you're just introducing bubbles and mess. There's no question that this is an immensely messy process, but that's all right. The results are worth it. And what I want and what I'm getting, as I can see already, especially through the glitter, and see how the dimensions are popping. That sort of depth I've been hoping would happen is happening. So all is well. I do see a good portion of bubbles. That's not a surprise, so no panic there. And in fact, where's my... I should have a... Well, I'm going to have to make another one. This is in here. Dum. Okay, one of the tools that you need is a straw. And I had a pen that I'd taken apart, and okay, got a new one. Basically just take a pen apart. You've got a nice hard straw, because the key to getting rid of these bubbles is air. Simple. I've got to make sure that I keep the beard out. So goofy that this is the way to get rid of those bubbles, but it's the most effective way. Boy, all right, so this is a pretty simple procedure, so not much to it past the first part here. And yeah, pretty much from here out. Bonk. We'll be just watching this dry, so just make double sure we've got some epoxy. On every surface. Don't stick your hat in it. Like I said, this doesn't stick to these plastics, so these pools of epoxy that are forming on this lid, I'll be able to just peel right off. Okay. I am going to rotate this just so I can get a gander. All right. Oh, damn it. Oh, dear. Yeah, that's why I was doing this. I should have kept doing that. Well, folks, I am very happy with this result. It's bubbles are dissipating steadily. The surface is looking very nice and smooth and glassy. Okay, so we're going to cover that thing up and come back and take a look at it a bit later. So that's enough of gumption from y'all, I imagine. So I'll give you a look at it and see what it looks like later on in our next video. So thanks for coming and watching Pottymouth Guitars. This has been Earl Pottymouth Arbuckle talking at you. Thank you to Make Every Media, a production company that helps me produce these videos. Seth Cleveland, Ross Victor, Michael Furstenfeld, and the whole crew over there. Thank you so much for all your work. And let's see you next time.
Well, you're raising the dead or shooting for the stars. Well, you can't go wrong with a Pottymouth guitar.